Hey everyone, and welcome to the S79 Saturday Sew Along. So today I've got this great little tutorial which is how to make a dog bed, and I'm going to show you how to make the actual pattern so you can make it any size for any size dog or cat. Okay, let's get making. So once you have measurements of your dog, lay out flat, add 5 centimetres around the edge to allow for the fact that the sides will be padded and for extra room. Then, taking a piece of paper, fold it into quarters and draw up an oval. So you'll have an oval pattern piece. This will be the base of your dog bed. So make sure that your dog can fit nicely in this area, allowing 5 centimetres all around the edge for extra room. So next it's time to choose your fabric for the project. So I'm going to use a fleece for the inside because it's nice and cozy. I'm going to use some plain fabric for the actual base of the bed. And then I've got some lovely tartan fabric which I'm going to use for the outer sections of the bed. Okay, so once you've decided how you're going to put it all together and the colours you're going to use, it's time to cut out. Okay, so if your fabric is not wide enough or you don't have enough to cut one great big long strip for the side, you can actually join pieces together to make the longer strip, which is what I'm going to do in this case because my fabric isn't wide enough. But before I cut this out, I'm going to match up the pattern of one long piece. So match the pattern up with the fold. If you've joined 2 pieces together as I have, then put the fold part of the pattern up against the seam. So not the seam allowance, just the seam. So we're now going to stitch all the way along this upper edge, just the upper edge. Okay, so we've now stitched the 2 pieces together. So we've got the inside here and the outside here. So you'll have something that looks a bit like this. And if we poke it all the right way around, you can see there the bed is starting to take shape, and we can see there that we have this lovely curve. So now we're going to open it out, and we're going to take this straight edge here and take this straight edge here, and we're going to match up these edges and stitch all the way down here. So we now have that stitched down, and this will then turn in, and we can now see that we have all the sides to the bed. Just push all that out like so. So you can now see that the bed is starting to take shape. Push up the corners where that should be. It's a good idea at this point just to give it a press down. Okay, so there's the side pieces all stitched together. I want to keep my stuffing sort of in sections to save it all sort of going all the way around. So you could leave it as it is and just fill the whole thing, or as I'm going to do, I'm just going to mark some sections into it. Now, because I've chosen to do a tartan, I'm actually just going to pick some of the main lines, and I'm actually going to choose to pick the main square line. Alternatively, you could just divide your pattern up into pieces and mark out sections. So I'm going to just remind myself of the sections I'm going to stitch. So it will be this black line down here, the centre here, this black line down here, stitch in there, turning it round, there's another of the black lines. If you don't have the luxury of tartan fabric, the lines on mine are 8 inches apart, so it's quite a nice amount. You can go closer together or farther apart. Okay, so now that's all pinned in place and I have my sections marked, what we're going to do is stitch a line of stitches all the way up, stopping here. So starting here, all the way up, stopping here, starting here, all the way up, stopping here, and the same with each line. And when we do the stitching, we're going through both layers, so through the lining layer and also the outer layer, so, and it's on the outside of your fabric. Okay, so we now have the dog bed, the sides of the dog bed, which is divided up into sections, which mine are about 8 inches apart. I followed the pattern just to keep it all in line. Okay, so now for the fun bit, we're going to stuff each of these individual sections just to give some padding on the edges of the bed. So I have some stuffing, give it a fluff it back up again if it's been stored for a while as mine has, and then push it into each section. And once you're happy with the amount of stuffing in each section, just pin it closed, just make it easier to work with. Okay, so that's now stuffed, and as you can see, it's actually taking its shape a lot better, and you can start to see the formation of the bed. So just have a little squeeze, check you're happy. I think the first one, second one, I was a bit stingy with the stuffing, so I'm just going to pop a little bit more in. You don't want to overfill, you need to stitch this down in a moment, so you want to leave an edge that you can obviously pull together and stitch. If you overfill, you'll be having problems with the sewing machine. There we are. So just have another check. you're happy with how it's all sitting, the firmness of everything. Great. Okay, so next we're going to stitch all the way around here to hold the stuffing in place before we move on to attaching the base. So go carefully and we're just going to stitch this all the way around this raw edge to close up these sections. Okay, so using a standard straight stitch, I'm going to slightly lengthen my stitch to about 3.5, and I'm just going to, it's a bit fiddly, I'm just going to be careful of the pins, push this end underneath the presser foot, making sure you have both layers, the outer and the lining, and stitch around the edge a 1 centimetre seam allowance. Forwards and backwards to start. You may need to guide this through because of the shape and the fact that it's filled. You may find that you need to squish it down and help guide it through. Don't pull too much, just guide it through. Okay, so that's all stitched in place now, so you can give it a bit of a punch back down just to get the shape back. Okay, so next we're going to attach the base layer onto the sides of the bed. So just mark the corners, so fold it in half. Can you have corners of an oval? I don't know. And just mark it with a pin. So mark the edge pieces, and again fold it in half. There we are. Open it out, fold it that way, and do the same. And there we are. So we have what I would call the 4 corners, but they're not corners, they're the central points. And these are going to link into the points on here. So we've got the centre point here, we've got the back point here, side point here, and side point here. So with the outside on the inside, the outer layer on the inside, and the inside on the outside, we're going to stitch this down. So where your pins are, this is going to be the front point. So then just put a couple more pins or clippers all the way along, and make sure it's nice and even. And then we're going to stitch all the way around this edge, so bringing together this raw edge that we've just closed and this base. Okay, so it's going to go back under our sewing machine, and I'm going to start at the front, and with the base at the bottom, because that's the flat piece, again we're going to push and pull this round. You need to make sure that all the raw edges line up. So the raw edge of the base, the raw edge of your side pieces that you've just stitched, they all need to line up together. And hopefully you'll be able to see this coming out of the sewing machine. So this time you want to be using about 1/2 inch seam allowance. So you want to be further over than your previous line of stitches. That was hard work. Okay, so we've now stitched all around the edge. Now, if you have used a fabric that's liable to fray, so any kind of woven fabric, as I have, the tartan fabric is woven. If you've just used a fleece, you don't really need to do this next step because it won't tend to fray. But it's quite nice to do because it finishes everything off. So, I'm going to switch to a zigzag stitch. Keep it nice and wide as possible. And we're quite simply going to zigzag all the way around this edge that we've just sewn. It should be a little bit easier. So we're just going to zigzag over the edge. So not over the stitches you've just done, just over the raw edge. If you have an overlocker, this is also, you can obviously also overlock the edge. Okay, so there we are, the base is attached. So now we can flip the bed the other way out, so it is now the right way, and we can see here that the bed is looking good with the base in place. Now obviously the base is a bit floppy, so it needs to have something nice and sturdy and comfortable in the bottom, just to hold it all in place. So I'm just going to put this to one side now, and we're going to take the two fleecy sections, which is going to be the pillow, and hopefully you've already cut them right sides together. So I'm just going to put the pins back in the edges. Shouldn't have to do anything to it. Okay, so we're going to stitch all the way around the edge of this pillow piece, these two pillow pieces, but we must leave a gap for turning it the right way out. So I'm just going to, it's best to leave your gap on the straight edge rather than on a curved edge. So I'm just going to double pin there, and that just leaves about a 5-inch gap just for me to turn it back the right way out. So stitch all the way around the outer edges. We don't need to worry too much about this. It doesn't fray, and it's going to be on the inside. So just a straight stitch from this pin all the way around to this pin. And stop again at the end of the double pins, forwards and backwards at the beginning and the end. So there we have it. Just get rid of any loose threads. And that's your pillow. So we're going to turn it the right way. There we are. So this is the pillow that goes in the bottom of the bed. We just need to stuff it now. Stuff it all through the hole that you've left. There we are. So come to the end of my stuffing, so I shall stop there. So little tip I've shown you before, if you have an opening, if you put your 2 fingers in and pull, it will naturally curve inwards. So you can just carefully grab hold of that, put a couple of pins in, just make sure all the raw edges are curled under to the inside. Okay, and I'm just going to top stitch along that edge to close up the hole. So top stitching with a straight stitch, and just close to the edge, sort of about 3 mil away from the edge. And it's finished. Just need the dog. For the fabrics, you need to choose some fabric for the outside. I'm using this woolen tartan, and you also need something cozy for the inside, which I'm just using a fleece blanket. Obviously, depending on the size of the bed, depends on the amount of fabric that you need. But if you follow the first steps of the video, you'll see how to make your pattern, and that will give you an idea as to how much fabric you actually do need. For the base, I've chosen to use just some standard base fabric. You could use cotton or anything really. It's the cushion that's the soft part. And there we are. So thank you so much for watching the video again today. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope your pets will enjoy it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so, and give the video a like if you do like it. Happy sewing.